Hello everyone, Ben Chapman here. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite video games, StarCraft. Um, StarCraft is a real-time strategy game. And what does that mean? It's a strategy game kind of like chess in that both sides have units or pieces, and the goal is to win the game. So in chess, it would be capturing or cornering the opponent's king. In StarCraft, it's destroying all your opponent's buildings and their base. Um, Now, the big difference is that StarCraft is real-time strategy. So that means both sides are going to be building units and moving units around the map at the same time. So, and it's hidden information. You don't know what your opponent's building until you see them on the map with their units. So there are plenty of mind games in figuring out which units to build. Every unit has their strengths and weaknesses, so if you can figure out what your opponent's doing, you can then find the appropriate unit to build that does well against their set of units. So that's like the overall, like the big picture of what it is. But how do you get your units? How do you manage them? How do you move them around the map? These are all things that are kind of better shown than explained. So I'm going to be jumping into a game here, but before I do, just a little bit more of a big picture of the different factions. So in chess, there's white pieces and black pieces, and they're pretty much the same. They just are different colors so you know who controls who. In StarCraft, there are three unique races: so Protoss, Terran, and Zerg. So Protoss are sort of high-tech alien race from the future, and they have a lot of special abilities, and individually each unit is pretty powerful, but expensive. Terran is the human race. They have your basic sort of marines, siege tanks, some flying units. So it's sort of a middle of the road. It's they have to have technology, but they're not as advanced as Protoss. And Zerg is sort of the alien primal race. So they're mostly insect looking. So you got like some roaches, zerglings, and they try to win by overwhelming numbers. So they're less technical than the Protoss and Terran, but they can produce a lot of units at once and try to overwhelm in that way. So each faction works by building a set of buildings. So we're going to focus on Terran just because they're the sort of more middle of the road. Just to give you a feel for how the game plays. And every game starts with a command center. So you're going to start with this. This is your home base where you're going to be harvesting resources. So you do need resources to train new units and to build new buildings. So there's very much an economic component to the game where you have to have a good enough income so that you can build enough unit buildings, which can then build enough units so that you can take your units and fight the enemy units. So the economic side is a pretty important one. So let's jump in. I think we know enough to get started. So we have our home base here, and you notice right away we've got a bunch of mineral patches. So these will deplete over time. They only have a certain amount of minerals that you harvest, and the worker units, they spend a little time sort of attacking the mineral, harvest it, and then they bring it back to your command center, and they bring back 5 minerals per trip. And so this is your total number of minerals. So I already have 100, so I'm going to go ahead and spend it on a building. So this is a supply depot. You need supply depots to make sure you're able to make more units. Right now I have capped at 14 supply out of 15. Early on the units are pretty much 1-to-1, so 1 supply for 1 unit. But as you build more complicated large units, they might be worth like 3 or 4 supply for just the 1 unit. So you do need these supply depots to be built so that you can increase your total army size. So once that finishes, I'll be able to build a barracks. So the barracks is the basic attacking structure or unit that or structure that builds attacking units. And you notice that I continue to make workers. Ultimately, I'm going to be moving on to expand to other bases. So here's another base here, here. They're all over the map. If you look over to the bottom left-hand corner, is the mini map of a picture of what the whole map looks like. So as I build more bases, I'm going to need more and more workers to harvest those minerals so that I can build bigger and bigger armies. So the main resource type was minerals, but there's also Vespene gas. So you can only harvest it by building a structure on top of these Vespene geysers. So I'm going to build a refinery here so that I can start harvesting the gas. That way I can build often the more complicated high-tech units. They cost Vespene gas as well as minerals. So the lower tier units like these SCVs, they only cost minerals to build. So training an SCV only costs 50 minerals, whereas building some more complicated units will cost gas down the road. Alright, so my barracks is done. I'm actually going to go down here and build a new base so that I can build even more SCVs and harvest more resources. So this barracks has the option of 2 different units. I'm going to build the most basic one, the Marine. It's a general purpose infantry, so keep in mind it does take time to train your Marines. So it takes about 31 seconds, and once that timer's up, the Marine will pop out of the barracks, and I'll be able to use the Marine. So right now we don't even know where our opponent is on the map, so we can use this Marine to go find them. So a big part of the game is figuring out what your opponent's doing, but that doesn't do you any good unless you have enough units to fight them. If you just spent your time building buildings, that's fine, but eventually they will send an army at you, and you want to be ready to fight it.
Command center upgrade complete.
So, did an upgrade on my command center.
Bad news. Woohoo! Overtime. Ah, who wants some?
Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals.
So you see, we're playing on a very slow speed. This is like a third of the speed the normal game would go. And here's our Marine running around. But we already have a lot going on, and that's where the real time kicks in. This game is classically known to be extremely hard to play, and the reason it's hard to play is you have to keep track of so many things at the same time. We have to keep track of keeping our economy going, so building more and more SCVs, and then making sure they're mining, making sure we're keeping up with the supply depots so that we can make more units. We have to make sure we have enough buildings to make sure we're spending all of our money, all of our resources. And our Marine just got taken out by a pack of Zerglings, so I didn't even, there's another thing. So while I was just looking at my base, trying to make sure I was building the right things, my enemy there decided to attack my Marines. So you have to be maintaining your whole base, but at the same time controlling your army. So moving them in strategic parts around the map, organizing in attacks, things like that. So there's 2 huge components to the game, where there's the economic one, where you want to make sure you have all the right buildings and that you're building a competitive army, but at the same time you have to be able to control your army and use it in smart ways so that you have the advantage when you come to fight. So you think about chess, the pieces on the board, that game is more about controlling the individual units or pieces, putting them in good positions to win the game. You still need to do that here, but you also you have means to make whichever type of unit you want. Say, again, the chess analogy, if maybe we want only bishops or rooks, you you'd build the appropriate thing to do what's best against your opponent. Here, we are limited by how many resources we have, so there's higher tech units that cost a lot, like this one unit here costs 300 minerals, 200 gas, and uses up 6 supply, so it's quite expensive. And you can't just get that right away. You have to make sure you have enough resources, and it's not even available because I don't have the right tech structure. So if I build this armory, then I can think about making a Thor. But that armory takes time to build, takes about 81 seconds, and then the Thor takes 75 seconds, so it takes a long time to build some of these high-tech units. So a lot of the games are decided early on by the lower tech units, like these Marines, and how well you control them, and where you put them on the map.
You're the boss.
Fueled up, ready to go.
Not enough energy.
So the basics here is that once we think we have an army capable of defeating our opponent's army, we should go out and think about either killing the opponent or expanding further so we can get a bigger and bigger force that becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, whatever.
Now, I've got a special ability here where I can look at what my opponent... I can do a scan to see what they're up to. So I see that they have a base and some tech structures. Zerg is a lot different in terms of how they build units and what they do with their units compared to Terran, but I can see they don't have very much, so I'm going to expand again and build more units
Not enough minerals.
and think about attacking.
This better be good.
So let's look at the mini-map. The bottom left-hand corner, again, this is the whole map. My main base is over here. My opponent is up here in the upper corner. And there's all these other expansions. So there's all these other bases because sometimes if you're playing an evenly matched game, it can take a long time to win, and you'll need to... eventually, you see this is starting to run low on resources. I'll have to expand to these other locations to keep my economy going.
By the numbers, boys.
So it's a constant struggle of sort of maintaining your economy and also keeping track of your army and using it in smart ways.
Standing. Big job, huh?
So now that I've got that armory done, I can think about building a Thor, which is the highest tech unit out of this factory.
SCV ready. Want a piece of me, boy?
So I've got these siege tanks. This is another
I'll give it back.
type of units. Right now I've only got Marines and 2 siege tanks.
Give us your
Siege tanks can only attack ground units, whereas Marines can attack air or ground.
got no
But
faith.
siege tanks can go into siege mode where they're immobile, but they have a long range and they can do lots of splash damage. So they are good to like fortify a position. Like so now, if the Zerg would try to attack me, they'll take lots of damage from these tanks as they run in, and Marines will protect the tanks from
You got it.
units that might try to run up to them, like those Zerglings.
In the rear with the gear.
So again, it's a lot to keep track of in terms of making sure you're building units all the time, making sure that you have enough buildings. So I just added that base.
SCV ready.
I might want to think about adding on even more tech and building structures. So I'm going to throw on a starport, which will let me build some flying units. And here's the Thor. So the Thor is just a sort of all-around powerful unit, but it's quite slow. It does have lots of health, but
SCV ready.
it's pretty hard to make a whole bunch of them because of how expensive they are and how long they take to build. So there's a whole suite of different units, right? Out of the factory, you can make 6 different units and 4 different units out of the barracks. And each of them has their place and situation where they're useful. So figuring out when is best to use them, how many to get, how to use them, that's a lot of where like the strategy comes in. Oh, another big thing is upgrades. So certain structures like this armory, you can invest in resources to upgrade the existing units. So after 200 seconds, this vehicle weapons upgrade will finish, and my tanks and Thor will start doing more damage. That's another metric you can get ahead on. So, one things that decide who wins this game is who has a bigger army, and that's usually determined by who has the better economy. But also, once the units are fighting, which units are stronger. So if we have a similar size army, the decider will then maybe go to upgrades. So from these tech structures, or which types of units you picked. Those are the things that can determine things. So, but one surefire way to make sure you're competing is that you have a good enough size. So that's where an economy can really help you.
You scared me.
Right now, I've decided not to attack. I'm just sitting back here and building up my forces so that I can attack at a later time.
Additional supply depots required.
I'm out of supply depots, so
Bad news.
build some of those. So it is very difficult to maintain
Additional supply
your supply depots, to maintain all the appropriate numbers of buildings, your upgrades, and then controlling your units.
Not enough
So
energy.
I guess now I'll move out and see what the opponent has.
Ready to roll out.
So now I've got some potential
Additional supply.
air units I can build out of the starport, so I'll build some of those.
It's your dime. You gonna give me orders?
So now you see on the mini-map I'm moving through the middle of the map, and we'll see if we can counter our enemy. There they are. I'm going to siege up my tanks,
Armed and SCV ready.
but we had an overwhelming force, so there's an example of just sheer numbers can be better than
Let's roll.
what types of units you have, even though our unit types are pretty strong for this situation. So here's a
Yes, sir.
part of the map that's
This better be
can be destroyed, so I'm just going to destroy it so I can move my army through this path.
Ready for dust off.
You'll notice my minerals and gas are going way up because I'm focusing on my army right now and not on building more units. That's a surefire way to lose. So it's better to make more and more production buildings.
Upgrade complete.
So my vehicle upgrade just finished. We're going to move into the enemy base and see what they got. I'll set up these siege tanks.
This better be good. Looking forward to it.
Go ahead.
Been waiting on you. Oh yeah.
So the enemy is on very easy, so they don't have much of an army. So we should be able to just march in here and shoot down all their buildings.
Gangway coming through.
Ready.
This better be good. Affirmative.
Upgrade complete.
And the opponent says GG, which means good game, and they're giving up.
Add-on
So
complete.
this is a very, very basic overview of what StarCraft is. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, I will be making another video talking about why I think it's awesome. So, hope you check that video out. Thanks for watching.